Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen Buerta, for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
Can you tell the listeners, Lisa, what is it exactly that you do in your business?
My business is making you feel beautiful. That's it. My business is, I'm in the business of making you look good, right? Whether it be educating you, which is 95% of my business, is I educate individuals on what proper skincare is for them, right? Because there's not a one size, there is not one product out there that's going to be the miracle product for everybody. So if you think like the next Instagram, TikTok, whatever fad is going to be it for you, it's probably not. Everybody has unique skin, everybody has unique chemistry, and it's about having that personal coach that's going to walk you through that. Because my focus is if you are a busy mom of 6 kids and you're going to work, you don't have time to do like 30 steps of skincare. It makes no sense. Why would I be like, this is the skincare plan for you? It doesn't make sense. I want to make something fit into your budget, number one, because you have to feel like you can afford it, and fit into your time and your lifestyle. If it doesn't fit into that, nobody's going to do anything. So I'm educating you on what's the proper steps. I'm educating you on if you want to update your makeup look, or what's even the proper way to put makeup on that's going to enhance your bone structure, enhance your looks. And some people just don't even know what's a professional application of makeup that's going to make you seem professional versus, hey, this is a glam, this is an appropriate date night. Probably not appropriate for the office, but there's a difference in some factors. So I educate. And then like that last like 5% is I've partnered with the product line Mary Kay because I believe in them. I believe in what they stand for, and I can sell you products that I believe are great quality. But 95% of it is me educating you on what's the best steps for you, what things actually do to your skin, what these products actually do, and just making you have a good time. So sometimes it's about getting people together and having a spa night because you just need like 60 minutes away from the craziness of your life, and that adds value to you. You now know that touching your skin reminds you that you're a human being and you're worth that investment.
Right, 100%. Tanya,
that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Lisa.
Didn't you give me a gift from Mary Kay, a nice, beautiful mint foot cream?
Oh, the Footsie Rolls. The Footsie Rolls are my favorite.
I love that. Yes. It's one of my favorites.
It was from you. Thanks, Tanya.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. So Lisa, I have a question. So it's so interesting when we have the podcast because I know you from as a friend, as a colleague, business partner. But when you mentioned a little earlier, it's funny because we only know people in the dimension that we know them and what they share, right? So all the time that I've known you for several years now, it's always, I always see you as like, this entrepreneur, different, backgrounds. And it was actually interesting. It took me by surprise a little while ago when you shared the word struggles that you've had. And I'm like, wow, I never thought Lisa had any struggles. Like, I mean, and I don't mean to like, shed light on maybe a sensitive area, but can you shed some light as far as, because just from the career aspect, it's like you've been a teacher and you've been a police officer and business owner, entrepreneur, community figure. And I know you shared a little bit about, just basic skills, with having, a young mom, and not having those fundamental skills. Can you shed a little bit deeper into other struggles? Because I'm just curious. I mean, I always see you just as this like admirable person in the community. So if you don't mind, I'd just be interested in knowing.
Yeah, well, I think we all have struggles, right? And it's what defines us. How we move through those moments is what defines us. So my parents were super young. My mom was 16 when Like she got pregnant with my older sister. She got married as a junior. She got married to my dad when she was a junior in high school. Had my sister in her summer break and went back to school to finish it. So my parents were always struggling financially, not in the fact that I will say this, I never wanted for anything that I needed, right? And because of that, things were stressful at home, right? You have kids raising kids, and everybody has their own individual struggles. My dad has his own struggles, and at times, there was some physical and emotional abuse growing up because anxiety and all of that usually comes out in some form of anger, which became my default emotion. That became my default emotion. Like my normal was I was angry. That's my normal. I grew up like just like angry, not understanding things, right? Like you're a kid, you're like, why can't things? I mean, I prayed for my parents to get a divorce when I was little. My parents are still together. But all of these things, I left home when I was 16. I went to live with my aunt and uncle because I was like, I just can't handle this anymore. I literally made the decision to go to college away from home because I was like, listen, like either I will kill myself or I'm gonna kill somebody else because like I cannot live like this. It was just not a healthy place, which is not uncommon. Like I don't think my childhood was necessarily it wasn't horrible, I still had love, I still had, lots of other things and pleasant experiences, but it definitely caused me to adopt a negative thought pattern.
Mm.
It caused me to adopt this idea of I'm not good enough. I'm too emotional. I'm too this. If I just tried harder, I would do it better. Like there was all these little, the negative self-talk that happens. And I'm grateful that even through all that, like I watched my parents be able to put food on the table. My mom would waitress at night. She'd come home and she'd count her tips in cash, and we would go to the grocery store the next day, and that's how we bought our food. So I was always learning about how life happened, like how life really is. So when I went to college, my mom was like, you go anywhere you want to go. I have $2,000, which I didn't expect my parents to give me anything, you know. And so I picked the University of Miami, so I went and got myself like a $150,000 education. But it was this because in my mind, there was no barrier of like, even though I had that negative self-talk of like me as a person, right? I had always achieved, like because it was expected of me, right? Like you get A's, you do this, like I had achieved. And I had seen my parents achieve in their struggles. So even though internally I had a negative self-image, externally it was this find a way, make a way attitude. Like, I gotta find a way out of this house. I gotta find a way to make this happen. Like, it was just like almost like a survival, like find a way, make a way to make things happen with a hard work ethic. And so I found a way to go to college for 4 years and leave with $10,000 in student loans and $3,000 on a credit card. Like that was an accomplishment. Now at the end of 4 years, was I broke, mentally spent, emotionally drained that I couldn't even continue. Like, so my degree is in geology and physics, totally random. Because I loved it, right? I'm like, if I'm going to study things that I love, and I wanted to learn about our groundwater system and, the earth, and I still love all these things. But I could not go get a master's program because I was like, I mentally cannot handle this any longer. And I've been blessed to have supportive people around me. So like, I think one of those struggles, like learning to deal with that emotional, like internal negative self-image, but to survive externally was a real like dichotomy. And it took me, years to overcome that, right? Obviously with some therapy and other stuff. And we still struggle with that, right? Still, even now, my husband will say something and it'll like trigger that thought pattern. And I'll be like, that's not a healthy thought pattern, right? Like I have to step out of it. I'll be like, he doesn't intend to hurt my feelings. Like this is, I still have to talk myself out of those things. But being able to I guess, achieve externally, gave me that space for me mentally and emotionally to catch up kind of on the inside, you know? That's
Wow.
just kind of one little part. I mean, we could talk all day about the problems
I
I
know
have.
it. But it's amazing. It's amazing. And so I'm gonna just probe a little deeper in your in the journey here. So when you said, obviously Shireen and I talk a lot about mental health, mental wellness, therapy, different modalities. What other things had you found helpful or do you find helpful that maybe you could share with the listeners in addition to therapy that has been beneficial for you?
Yeah. So I'm a big proponent, right, of self-care, big proponent of self-care, and not just like, okay, skincare and beauty. Self-care in terms of carving out pockets of time for yourself, even if they're small pockets, right? So even in law enforcement, if I had a small pocket in the day and for 15 minutes I could read like that trashy novel in my car, I'll read the trashy, like it shuts my brain off. It it transports me to another place where I'm not thinking about all of the stressors in my life. So small and find out what that is for you, right? So for me, I know I can read a trashy novel and I'll feel better. I know that I can take a walk outside. Like I love to be outside. I can sit there and just watch the trees. I can watch the water on the ocean, even better. If I can just close my eyes and listen to nature, those are all things that will fill my cup, right? So it's about finding what your place is that kind of gives you that moment to breathe and to just be still in that moment and kind of like let everything I fall away. So I love that. I also love exercise. I actually like stretching more than anything. I love to stretch, to just like breathe and be in the moment, let that tension leave your body. I think is great as well. And I do believe that a lot of it has to do with my faith that there's a greater power out there and understanding that I'm not in control and I just don't understand what's going on. But um, I am where I am, even though all of these things, right, have happened to us along the way and things haven't been pleasant at all times. I'm grateful for where I am. Like I live a great life. I have a loving husband. I don't struggle financially. I'm in a place where I get to add value and be of service to other people. Like what else could I want for, you know? So I think having that perspective too, thinking about that, that we live in a country where we're not dealing with bombs every day. Like these are all things, like when you put yourself in that perspective of gratitude, I think helps your mental health a lot. Because when you're struggling, you're always just looking inside. It's about what's happening in my sphere, what's happening to me, and it's almost like that victimhood, you know? And that's why I think that quote, right, of choices is so powerful to me because it gives me that power back. The power of choice is so impactful in it. And that gives people that self-worth or that, hey, I have some control in this situation where it feels out of control.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Interesting. And the education piece, you said you studied at University of Miami. Congratulations. I mean, that's a very difficult school to get in and be successful in. So congratulations on that journey. You said you studied geology and physics, and I'm just trying to kind of bridge the gap here. The
Yeah, how do these all things fit together, right? How do they fit together?
Yeah, what's the puzzle? What's Lisa's puzzle? So the education piece, how did you get into education and what did you teach and how did you get out of it? Because most people that get into education don't leave education.
Yeah. So I got into teaching and I taught at a private Catholic school in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because the University of Miami has this amazing program where they have faculty families that live in the dorms. And so they're like your mentors. And I got really close to one family, and he was a marine science professor, and his wife was in the school system in Broward County. And obviously they knew me. We talked about what's going to happen after. Am I going to go back to Massachusetts where all my family's from? And she said to me, you have a science degree. If you just need a job, they need science teachers. Like you will get hired. Like just it's a possibility. And I was like, okay, like kind of like that. Okay, I have something. I have a marketable skill. and I just need to eat something other than ramen noodles. So what are we here? So I got hired at this private high school, and I taught chemistry and physics, right at my wheelhouse. I loved it. And I even loved more when a student struggled in my chemistry class and they chose to sign up for my physics class, which is like an elective. I'm like, ah, like I've made a science person out of somebody. Like it was just like, yes. And I loved to transfer skills, right? So I saw kids, which I think is interesting, right? Schools are so different across America. The schooling system is so different. I came from a public school in Massachusetts, and I was like, wait a second, this is private school? Like, what is going on in Florida that this is private school? So I was like, these kids need some life skills. So yes, I taught chemistry and physics, but I taught more like how to take notes. Because I was like, kids need these skills, right? Kids need actual skills. And going into my 4th year there, there was some friction, let's say, between me and the administration because there was a slight bit of hierarchy at this school. Like, you were a man, okay? Then you were a woman who had graduated from that school. So you're like a female alum. And then there's all the other females. So I tend not to do great in environments such as that. I have a little bit large of a personality, I will say. I'm one of those like, it's not right. It doesn't, which the world is not fair. It doesn't matter. So a bulletin had come out from the FBI. The FBI was looking for math and science degrees to apply to the position of special agent. And I was like, oh, like this is one aspect of geology I was really interested in because forensic geology in World War II was used a lot. The Japanese were sending over hot air balloons to bomb the western coast of the United States. And the ones that did not explode had sediment still attached to them. And so they could determine what beaches they were being launched on overseas to coordinate attacks. So to me, like it's all about a puzzle, right? Science to me is like the ultimate puzzle. It's like, how do we figure things out? And I said, okay, I'm not feeling my jam here, right? So I chose not to. We always had I think we had like in mid-year sign a contract for the next teaching year. So I had applied in like October for this program with the FBI, and I had started going through the process, which is really interesting. You actually have to do several tests, like written tests, which would kind of make sense, right? Like then a math test, which you're kind of like, why do I need to do a math test? But it is. And then like a reading comprehension, and then get an oral interview. Well, I was still going through all those different processes, and they said, oh, here's your teaching contract. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to sign. They're like, oh, no. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to sign. So I ended up not getting the job with the FBI. Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because they told me I had no law enforcement experience. And I was like, hold up. You asked for a science or math degree. Like, what type of law enforcement experience did you expect me to have?
Right.
Right? But at the time, I was dating a guy who worked for the sheriff's office. And he's like, listen, you were too smart, but you can be a cop if you want to be a cop. Like, go get a couple years of experience and they'll hire you. So they came back to me, the school, and was like, are you sure you don't want to have your teaching job? And I was like, yeah, no, I really don't want to. And like, things happen for a reason, right? Like, I was ready to leave that job for a reason. I was struggling there just being in that environment. So I went on this journey and decided I'm going to be a cop. Why not? Again, find a way, make a way, right? Like, this is the next logical step. Let's just make it happen.
Right.
I got hired by the Boca Raton Police Department. And within a year, I was on the bomb squad. And I was like, sciencey stuff. So excited. Get to solve puzzles. And then I was like, wait, I can do my 20 years and be done and be in my mid-40s and retired. I think that I can just do this, right? Like it was, and the reality was people were so confused that I could go from teaching to law enforcement. They're like, that's so different. And I was like, is it though? Because you're trying to communicate with people who don't want to hear your message and get them on your team. Like, that's really what you're doing, right? I'm trying to feed this information into high school students who don't want to know it and get them to learn it. Or I'm trying to deal with an angry criminal or angry neighbors, get them to resolve their problem, and we all move on our way. It's the same thing. It was all about communication. different styles of communication and in different, I guess, arenas, but it was all just about communication. And I was so excited. I got to do all my sciencey stuff with the bomb squad. So to me, life is like a puzzle. Like if you get like I will find I love to figure it out. I love to figure it out. And so that's really what it's been the connecting factor maybe through everything. But I loved being a cop. I loved being a bomb technician. Like I loved that. I loved looking at x-rays and being like, okay, like that's a spring and that's a switch and it looks like it works this way. And like I don't know. It's just fascinating to me.
Right. That's so
Oh, you're
cool.
fascinating. You're
I
fascinating.
know. And it's just,
Truly.
it's a perfect example of you are painting your canvas. And right now, your canvas is you've got some water paint, you've got some acrylic paint, you've got a couple of photos thrown in there. It's yours and it's unique and absolutely beautiful. And I have another question, but I just want to pop in here with a Buzzsprout ad. Ladies, Friends from Wild Places is a place to share stories from other business owners and professionals, a safe space to show support for everyone that's all over the world when it comes to being a business owner and entrepreneur. We feature nonprofits every month to try and make a difference and give a helpline to someone in need. Do you have a message you want to share with the world, or maybe you just think it'll be fun to have your own talk show? Podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. So, to start your own podcast today, follow the link in the show notes. This lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you, and it does help support our show. So, just remember that the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Back to you, Lisa. I have this question. What is a piece of advice to give someone who is at a later stage in life that wants to go out on their own and they're not sure, or they got so many doubts in their minds? Like, what is that piece of advice to help them make that decision and leap of faith?
For me, it would be find a mentor and do it anyways. Like if you have a calling on your soul, like if you have an urge to do something, like that was put there for a reason. Like you have a skill set, you have a message to share, you have a way to be of service to people, you have a product or whatever it is, whatever that thing you want to step out in is, you're thinking about it for a reason. And so the fear is just the fear. It will go away when you start working through it. But finding a mentor who has walked the path before you takes away a lot of that fear and gives you a support system.
I like that. And I think that's so true, just from practice and experience for myself. Lisa, I think that you've hit the nail on the head there, because I don't think the fear ever goes away, but I think courage is feeling that fear and just doing it. And part of my road actually is getting a mentor. And there were many times, it's a lonely road being a business owner and entrepreneur. And many times I wanted to give up because it's the imposter syndrome, it's the fear of failure, there's so many things that run through my mind that I just want to throw in the towel and step away and choose an easier way of doing this, because this is mentally quite taxing. But with having a mentor involved, that really helped talk you off the ledge, encourage you, motivate you, tell stories from their experience. Like Shireen, this is normal. It's not linear. Being a business owner, you've got ups, you've got downs, you've got to feel them and go through them. So I agree with you, Lisa. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you very much. It's just because, and Tanya, you can obviously either agree, I think you agree with this, but a lot of our listeners, we aim for people that have decided later on in life to no longer work for someone else, but to go on their own road and be an entrepreneur and business owner. And this specific platform that we've created is a safe space for these business owners and entrepreneurs, or for those listeners that want to go out on their own and they don't have the courage. And this is exactly why we bring guests like yourself on the show, so that you can actually share it for our listeners and go, hey guys, this is my road, this is my journey, and this is the advice I can give to you. So we really appreciate you, Lisa, for that advice and just being here again, because your story is so unique, and it's not, you didn't stick to one road and maybe change it halfway in life. You just decided, who cares? Who says you can only be this? Who says you can only be this? I can be whatever I feel like it and choose to be. And maybe next term you'll see me riding for vice president, for the US. Tune in next week for part 3 of Friends from Wild Places.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.